Hello, my name is Kendall Manus, and this is my final reflection on social justice education. So, a little background about me: I am a junior at UNCG. I actually started off this year as a special education major, but I decided that that was not the route that I really wanted to take and had a little change of heart and ended up being a psychology major. So, being in an ELC class, which is made for students who want to get their teaching licensure, whenever I knew that wasn't what I was no longer going to do, was a little strange, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, I really do appreciate what I learned in the classroom, and I think it's definitely made me a more empathetic and understanding person. And I really did enjoy hearing other people's perspectives, and it was a great class all around. So, whenever I thought about what I wanted to do for my final reflection, I definitely knew that I still wanted to do something with special needs and inclusion in classrooms because that's why I was here in the first place. I still want to work with individuals with special needs, and so this is information that's still going to be relevant to me, but could also be relevant to someone who is getting a teaching degree. So my question was, what progress has been made in the past decade to work towards making public schools more inclusive? So with that question, I wanted to look at two other sub-questions of some sort. And the first one is, what qualifies an educator to successfully collaborate a wide variety of ability in a single classroom? And the second question is, what improvements could still be made? And whenever I was thinking of that question, I kind of wanted to look more in depth to our primary sources and see what they had to say about it. So my first primary source was Connor and Stocker's Children's Experiences of Disability, Pointers to a Social Model of Childhood Disability. So this is on pages 28 and 29. And I wanted to get kind of a perspective of someone who is special needs and how they feel in a public setting, not necessarily just public school, but just in public in general, and how they feel like they're being perceived by others, if it's their peers, or if it's a stranger, or if it's their friends, anyone. So this says reactions of other people: staring, talking down as if addressing a young child, inappropriate comments, inappropriate behavior, and overt sympathy. So I also wanted to look at material barriers. And so this is more, it has less to do with emotion, more to do with the physicality of things that people with special needs may struggle with, especially in a school. So they included lack of access to leisure activities and clubs, especially for teenagers, transport difficulties, paucity of after-school activities, lack of support with communication. So now I wanted to take two stories from individuals who were special needs to kind of see how they feel about this, and these were also included in the article on these page numbers. So the first one says, one boy reported he had been unable to go to a mainstream high school with his friends from primary school because parts of the building were not accessible to him. The next one says, a 14-year-old who wanted to attend an evening youth club at school was told it was not possible to arrange accessible transportation at that time. It was suggested that he remain in the school after afternoon lessons ended until the club began. Understandably, he was not willing to wait around by himself in a school for 4 hours, nor attend the youth club wearing his school uniform. So to connect that with my concept or my question, I said, according to the article, it seems that there are still steps that need to be made to ensure that special needs students feel like they belong in public school. Transportation, access to resources, and treatment by others seem to be major parts of why these individuals feel like they're less of a part of the school than everyone else. So my next source is from Rieger McGrail, Exploring Children's Literature with Authentic Representations of Disability. This is on pages 18 and 19. So bear with me, this one is going to be a little bit more of a long read, but I think it's really important to share. It says, researchers who have examined disparaging attitudes towards students with disabilities have noted that a lack of familiarity has been the most significant contributor to these negative attitudes. Further, that lack of familiarity has been difficult to rectify because children with disabilities are not often appropriately represented in books. and other media, if they are represented at all. This misrepresentation in and absent from children's literature has had two deleterious results. A, children with disabilities cannot find themselves an appropriate role model represented in books and other media. And B, abled students remain unaware of this absence, which amplifies their unfamiliarity with different abled students. Thus, the lack of appropriate young people's literature featuring children of all abilities engenders a classroom environment in which children with disabilities are invisible to their peers without disabilities. How I connected this source to my concept was when evaluating what kind of exposure students are getting to disability and how represented these individuals feel, there are obvious shortcomings. More could definitely be done to make all these people, despite ability, feel relevant in their educational communities. This should start off with adding more inclusive books to the curriculum starting at a young age. And to connect this to my own life, I have been in school in the past decade, obviously, and I have noticed that in elementary school and in middle school, I don't think I read one book about anyone with special needs or a disability, so I'm not sure if they're doing it now, but I definitely know that there could have definitely been a lot more done to make these students feel represented. And it's kind of sad, and all because they're a whole part of our community and they're not being represented in books in school, but everyone else is. Anyways, primary source number 3 is Critical Community Building Beyond Belonging, and this is by Bates. This is on page 10. It says, it is important for social justice educators to promote critical communities. My use of the term critical is derived from progressive forms of critical theory. Critical theory creates a possibility to see what may have otherwise been unimaginable to us. Critical pedagogues strive to eliminate oppression, understand that all education is inherently political, and recognize that cultural and historical contexts affect individual agency. So yes, I know that this source is a little bit more vague, but I have a point, I promise. I wanted to say that this is a little bit more of a general point, but whenever I hear about the word critical, whenever we're talking about communities, I think about understanding. And that's what my whole question really was about inclusion. How understood are people feeling, and what can we be doing to make them feel more understood and more a part of the community? And so I think it's really good to be in touch with every sense of our community. It gives people a stronger sense of belonging, and I think that a stronger sense of belonging really does mean inclusion. So I think that was a really important one to share. So for my interview, I'm going to be speaking to my mom and dad about my concept at the same exact time. My dad is an English teacher at a high school, and my mom is a special needs worker. So let's see how this goes.